Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown, where we talk about 2A news and conservative views. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. But as we all know, I do not do this program by myself.
That's right. My name is Mike Piroworski, coming to you live from the East Coast. That's the coast with the most, from the co-host with the most, here on The Rundown, 2A views, conservative news. And Craig, did you do anything interesting over the weekend?
Yeah, I don't know that I would call it interesting. I watched the Super Bowl yesterday. Had a couple of friends come over and checked it out. Great. The best thing about Super Bowl is it's a great way to invite people over to your home and make them cook food and bring it to you.
There you go. There you go. That's a man with a plan right there. It's a man with a plan. There you go. So, good stuff. Good stuff.
Anyway, enjoyed the game. Halftime show was, I don't know.
I heard they got pregnant chicks dancing at halftime now, or something
Yes,
like that.
yes, they had. It was definitely it was an interesting show. I like Rihanna's music. I think that she was a bit over the top on some stuff, and I'm like, I'm wondering myself. She is a billionaire. Why does she feel she needs to do this?
Well, I'm guessing the way you get to be a billionaire is because you feel the need to do these things and continue to put yourself out there in the presence and do your little pregnant dance and whatever it happens to be. And
Well,
so
some
I
of it I have to be honest. It happened so quick. It's like when I saw people talking about it, I was like, I don't remember that. And so I had to actually went back and watched it again. I'm like, oh my god, she did that.
oh,
Like,
what a glutton! Watched it again. Um, yeah, listen, I did not. I'm not a football fan anymore. I did not watch the game. I'll get a wrap up on the commercials today and heard some of the controversy. You and I talked about it before we went on the air with some of the officials calling. But other than that, it really just gave me some time to do some stuff that I needed to do around the house.
yeah. Well, regarding the controversy, I guess for me it's less about whether or not it was a good call or not, and more about it took a game that could have ended like on a high note where you have one team with a minute and 40 seconds left with the ability to drive down and potentially win the game, or you go with that call and basically you have one the other side taking a knee three or four times before they finally kick a field goal. Game over. The game kind of went out. A really good game went out with a bit of a whimper.
Yeah, well, I'm glad if you enjoyed it, if you watched it. I just, like I said, I've been out of football for a couple of years since they brought politics into it, and I have not missed it. So I was happy not watching yesterday.
Well, one of the things they did do yesterday was it was actually a very, very patriotic pregame show. It was not what I was expecting from the NFL. Or let me clarify. Very patriotic for the NFL.
Gotcha. Okay, so by very patriotic, you mean nobody knelt down?
There was no kneeling. There was no BLM. The closest they got was someone singing "Lift Every Voice and Sing."
Well, there you go. See, okay. Well, that's enough to keep me away.
Well, I enjoyed it, and many people did enjoy it. Halftime show, mixed feelings that people had. Not so much, anyway. It's over. Football is over for this year, unless you're going to watch the USFL. Um, I don't know. I haven't watched it
Which
yet, so.
we have a team here in Orlando, so I might go
Ooh,
spend $2 and watch the game.
there you go. There you go. As long as they're not charging $2 for the game and $20 for the beer.
Well, it's still a stadium. I mean, they got to pay for it somehow.
Yes, yes, it is.
We'll see.
All right, Mike. Well, before we get into today's show, let's go ahead and do a quick shout out to our sponsors.
Yeah, let's say hello to our good friends at Hitman Industries. That's hitmanindustries.net, hitmanindustries.net. You got yourself an AR the past 5 years, odds are you got one of their barrels and don't even know it. Well, now you can buy from them direct for your next build or to rebarrel your current rifle. That's hitmanindustries.net. California Republican Assembly fighting the good fight behind enemy lines. Now you can get involved in California's future today. If you want some awesome field gear, some tactical gear, some web gear, hunting gear, hiking gear, please get on over and see our friends at uscombatgear.com. And if you want yourself an awesome holster, inside the waist, tactical, concealable holster, go to Hog Holsters. That's HAWG holsters.com, HAWG holsters.com. It's too late to get anything for Valentine's Day, but you could sure as heck get one before St. Patrick's Day. So order now and use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word.
Folks, these are our sponsors. They bring us to you so that we'll bring you to them. So do us a favor. Visit them. Matter of fact, do yourself a favor. Visit them. The links to their websites are in the description to this program. So all you got to do is click. Check them out. Make sure you tell them that the guys over at The Rundown sent you. It's that simple. Also, remember, like, share, subscribe. Like, share, subscribe. Encourage your friends to do the same. We don't care how you partake as long as you partake.
There you go.
Nope. Mike, we didn't get a chance to talk about the items that have been floating over the United States last week. Did you hear that there was a fourth item, well, let me clarify. There was a fourth object that was shot down by U.S. jets. This now, according to the Associated Press, was reported in the Associated Press, that in 8 days, 4 objects have flown over the United States. Eventually all of them have been shot down. But in this case, it was the fourth one just got shot down just yesterday. I got to believe, Mike, that this something that is brand new, or have these things always been flying over the United States and we're just now finding out about it?
This is probably China just doing what China's doing, pressing Biden's buttons to see what happens, pressing the U.S. buttons. If you recall, and I don't expect you to go to the tape, when the story first came up last week, I said that the conspiracy portion of this was that there were multiple objects. And remember that one had been reportedly shot down over Missouri as well, and that there had been multiple objects. So, and they were reported by legitimate news sources there in central U.S. Well, here you go. I mean, here's further proof. It's continued and continued and continued. You know, we see more and more of these objects coming. So first day, what was, oh man, it's a conspiracy theory, all of a sudden appears to be fact that we have multiple objects now coming in from the West Coast.
Well, you know what? I've just come to the point where anything I hear, no matter how outrageous, I never poo-poo it out of hand, just because nowadays, especially with our government, that kind of just seems to be how it is. And what's funny is how the administration has been silent on it. I mean, you had Kirby, the press secretary for the Department of Defense. He didn't even mention it. If it hadn't been for a reporter asking him a question about, the fourth balloon or item being shot out of the sky, he wasn't even going to talk about it.
I think the most interesting part of all of this is, of course, there are people asking questions. Are they UFOs? And rather than just laughing at them and going, come on, next question, right? The Defense Department and the military and even a couple of the people on the House Armed Services Committee are going, we're ruling nothing out right now. Oh, okay. All right. Good. Yeah. Good. Yeah. That's great. That's great. That's what we need to worry about. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, now keep in mind, an unidentified flying object does not necessarily mean that it is of alien in nature. It just means we don't know what it is or who put it up there.
Listen, you're exactly right. But there is an implication when you say the word UFO that's what you mean. However, my theory, Craig, is that this is a new way for Mexicans to come over the border.
When it's coming, in particular, when it's coming from the northern border, what are they going up to Canada and then coming down, or going to China and then flying the balloon over?
The problem with riding a balloon is you get stuck in the jet stream. You're going where you're going, baby. That's the hazard of balloon riding. This isn't no dirigible. This is no blimp with the controllable air surfaces. This is, I'm going where the wind takes me.
Well, Mike, you know what? You have been right too many times for me to disagree out of hand. So I'm just gonna leave that one alone, and we'll just put that in the let's wait and see column. How about that?
There we go.
All right, moving right along. DeSantis now has control over the Disney district. Well, Mike, you being not just from Florida but from Orlando, I'm going to go ahead and let you share this story with the folks.
So let's be clear on this because this is a big deal. I'm not from Florida. I'm not from Orlando. I'm from New York City, and I just happen to live in
You
Orlando.
currently reside in Orlando.
There we go. Thank you very much. Thank you
All
very
right.
much. All right. Yeah, I don't want to lose my New York cred, you know. So here's the deal. Listen, remember, Disney basically formed its own. To give you the background on it, real quick, when they formed, or when Walt came here and bought up land in the '60s, they formed their own taxing district, which is kind of like an independent county or an independent city. All right, they answer to no one but the state, and Disney appointed their own executives to this district as the members of the board. So Disney appoints its own, for lack of a better term, its own members and city council, its own mayor and city council members to their own district. So it's just a rubber stamp to do what the Disney bosses want to do. They've saved themselves a lot of tax money, you know, on what they've done, millions and billions of dollars probably at this point over the past 50 years that Disney's been down there and built. So Disney thought that over the past year and a half, they were going to flex a little muscle against the governor here with the anti-woke campaign, and the governor said, you know what? You want to be a corporation, you go ahead and be a corporation, but you're not going to dictate government policy to us. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to remove your independent taxing district. So rather than remove the district, because that would have left some debt out there, the governor decided, here, we're going to pass this new law, and guess what? 100% of your board members are now people appointed by the governor. So that's his victory on it this week. Disney still has the special taxing district, but rather than take that burden and lay it on the local counties down here by getting rid of it, he appointed his own people, or he will be appointing his own people to this independent taxing district. So now Disney's all taxing and funding anything that involves roadways, infrastructure, anything like that. That's not a piece of Disney building. Will now rely upon the state's answers before they can do so.
Right. You know, it is amazing that this is even better, because if they just flat out lost it, that would be one thing. But now it's like he has the ability to control it. So now it's not and they can now make decisions based on how Disney decides to act from here on out.
Exactly right. And we used to have my old commander used to have a saying in one of the Army units I was in. He said, you either play ball with the 16th Cav or we jam the bat up your ass. And that's what DeSantis has done with them. He has said, listen, you don't have to play ball with me, but if you don't, there's going to be repercussions. And it really, listen, it's not like he went after Disney. Disney came after him, and the governor said, we're not going to let you mess with the state. We're not going to let you ruin our state. Right. And here's what it was. We're not going to let a California-owned company come in and dictate Florida law. And that's what it is.
Right. Well, what gets me is that they literally thought that they were bigger than that. And they're finding out. It's amazing to me. I'm watching all these woke companies that are now losing money. You got Bed Bath & Beyond. You got Dick's Sporting Goods. You've got Disney now is losing money. All of these folks who decided they want to try and guide policy to the left are now finding that, they're now finding they're losing money. And I'm glad to see it.
Yeah, and listen, I'm pretty confident that Bob Iger, now the new CEO over there at Disney, is going to he's already kind of rolled back some of the last CEOs, principles. Disney has a path to continue to make money. Craig, we say they're losing money. They still made money, but not as much as they've made previously. How about that?
Right.
And he's got a path to go ahead and do that. And I think it would included like laying off something like 7,000 Disney employees, but that's around the world. That's not just the people at the parks. They've evidently become inflated in all of their departments, including their the movie making, all the people, all the things that they do around the world. So they're going to be laying off a lot of these extra jobs that are no longer needed.
Right. Well, there you go. And it'll be good to see Disney get back to being Disney, being about families, being about kids. It's amazing that Disney, of all the organizations, I'm like, You are all about kids and family. Why would you? It's like literally they decided to cut off their nose to spite their face.
They did over the past 5 or 10 years. That's exactly the way they've gone. They've decided that it's no longer about being the happiest place on earth. It's no longer about making sure children are taken care of. It's gone the exact opposite way. And the governor here said, "Not in my state."
Yep, yep. That's exactly what happened. Exactly what happened. Well, sorry guys. All right, moving right along. This next story. Now this is an interesting one because I have kind of mixed feelings about it. Not because I believe the judge made the wrong decision, but because it's an example of the fact that sometimes rights have rights. Sometimes rights can be dangerous, and this has to do with a decision that was made over domestic violence orders. So, a federal judge in Kentucky ruled that the ban for people with domestic violence restraining orders against them, you cannot remove their right to keep and bear arms. And I guess my thing is that I don't know what the threshold is in various different places to get this sort of a hold. But if someone has been proven to be a danger to another person, and in particular when it comes to in this case domestic violence, then should that person? I mean, if we're talking about removing firearms from people who are potentially dangerous or a harm to others, it would seem like this would make sense. But once again, his arguments and given in his rulings are constitutionally sound.
Yeah, let's jump into this because again, this has the imagery of arming domestic violence offenders,
Right.
And it's not arming domestic violence offenders. It's making sure that people don't lose their constitutional rights when they've been accused of a crime as opposed to convicted of a crime. All right. This is domestic violence orders are one step short of a red flag order. The red flag orders are anybody can come for any reason and say, I think there's a danger and have your rights removed. A domestic violence order. And again, this might be a little different from state by state. They are a known person in a domestic situation, whether it be a household, a roommate, something like that, says that that they believe that they're under threat. And then this can be done ex parte. That means without the domestic violence accused person's knowledge. And the first time they would gain knowledge of this is when the local sheriff shows up at the door and says, here's your domestic violence order, give me your guns. We see more often than not that these are tools of divorce or angry spouses, okay? That very few times they're about domestic violence. Are they about domestic violence in some cases? Absolutely. But what the judges decided is you can't seize or take somebody's rights away from them without garnering the facts first, without there being some sort of conviction. You cannot just go around and take guns away from people, because somebody else said something else. You have the right to face your accuser. You have the right to a jury by your peers. You have the right to due process. And domestic violence orders does not do that with regards to firearms. Okay, the keeping you away from somebody. You can't make contact. All of that's still valid. It's just that you can't take the right to bear arms away from somebody. It's a little hard to swallow at first. But let me give you for instance. And there's actually been 3 cases in the past week from 3 separate courts. None of these people, Craig, this was their only charge. Okay, so I want you to think there's judges out there giving guns back to people freely. They ruled against it. However, the guns were not given back because they still have other charges against them or other convictions against them.
Right. Like for example, in the case this specifically dealt with, he actually had another charge because he had the domestic violence order against him and he lied when he went and he purchased it. So when he filled out the 4473, he actually didn't say that he had an order against him.
Right. And so that's there's a federal violation right there, a perjury charge for filling out the 4473, and he's still under indictment for that. So he did not get the gun back. Okay. Just the one reason that the state used to take the firearm from him is not valid any longer. Another one was a guy who'd been convicted on multiple charges of shooting people, Craig. But when they went to his house to serve a warrant and arrested him on those charges, they found there was a domestic violence charge also in place. So they charged him with that in addition to. So they appealed all of those decisions. All of those other charges that involved the use of the firearm, those all stood. They were not affected at all. He's still convicted of those. But the one charge where it was possession of a firearm by somebody with the domestic violence order, that was thrown out.
Right.
So this is not taking the guns out of hands of victims as well. The victims still have the right to go get their firearms and do everything else. This is simply saying you cannot go violate a right of someone based on the accusation alone of someone else.
And I think that is actually a very good. So in other words, it doesn't deal with someone who has a domestic violence conviction, just an accusation against them. All right, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, convicted of. I'll tell you what, which is, and I've been talking to a couple of the attorneys about this that we all deal with. This is why we think this might be much bigger than it really is. Let's say, for instance, Craig, marijuana laws. What are your marijuana laws there in California right now? Pretty much anybody 18 and over can get marijuana,
right? Yeah, 18 and over can get. Wait, it's 18? I think so. Yeah, I think it's either 18 or 21. You can be in possession of X amount. Anything over a certain amount, then it's considered with intent to sell. So, or distribution, which you have to have a license to be able to do. Yeah.
And that law is about 5 years old in California?
Something like that, yeah.
All right. So if somebody 10 years ago was convicted of possession of marijuana and they're serving a 10-year sentence on it for whatever reason, and you change the law on marijuana, that doesn't mean you get to go back and vacate those old convictions. The law of the land was still of the law of the land. They just changed the law, okay? So you don't get to go back and vacate an old conviction. With this now, with this, let's say somebody was convicted of a firearms crime 5 years ago, and now the courts have said, okay, we're not changing the law on this. We're changing the way you determine the guilt. So under the Bruin decision, you must do these two things, your historical text and the plain reading of the document. And if you did that improperly 5 years ago, they can go back now and look at past convictions and possibly have those convictions vacated because they're saying you came to the decision of guilt the wrong way.
Right.
We didn't change the law. You came to the decision of guilt the wrong way.
Right.
So now this opens the door to going back to old firearms convictions and having them vacated.
Well, and folks, this is the thing, and this is why, it is so important to understand, the concept of judicial activism. Judicial activism is not doing something. A lot of people think, well, if you're changing the court's position on something, that's judicial activism. No, that's not what it is. It's judicial activism if you are supplanting what the law and the historical context are. You're replacing that with your own views, values, and opinions. That's not the job of the court. The job of the court is to interpret the law and make sure that the law was accurately or appropriately applied. Right? That's what a non-judicial activist does. Now, sometimes, sometimes you can be an originalist and not be an activist and wind up instituting a whole bunch of things because of wrong decisions that were made. And in most cases, and in many cases when it comes to gun stuff, that whole idea of, levels of scrutiny, which was just pulled out of someone's rear end, it resulted in a lot of wrong decisions when it comes to gun crimes, when it comes to gun laws.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. And like one of the other attorneys I talked to said, listen, many times you'll get good law that'll come from a bad person. And that's what we see here. This is good law that's come from a couple of criminals, from bad people. And the most popular one I could think of, the most common one I could think of is the Miranda decision. Ernesto Miranda was a very bad man. In fact, ended up after the Miranda decision, 4 years after the Miranda decision, he was killed in a bar fight and stabbed to death, after he'd been wanted for other crimes. And in fact, they were unable to get a conviction back then on the guy that stabbed him because he invoked his Miranda rights and wouldn't talk to police.
Well, and it's funny. I'm in the process right now of, oh, I just finished actually reading Thomas Sowell's Vision of the Anointed, right? And he was talking about judicial activism. He was talking about how in the 1960s you had a Supreme Court and appellate courts that were literally changing law, activist judges that were basically changing the way in which a lot of these decisions were going. It wasn't a change in laws by lawmakers that resulted in the dramatic increase in crime through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. It was changes in the judicial system, in the way in which judges were making decisions, where they moved more and more the burden off of the defendant and more onto the state, or they made it easier for criminals to be set free.
As well as on the civil side as well. In fact, the epitome of judicial activism in the 60s and 70s was Roe v. Wade.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. That's exactly what it was. It was, we're just going to make something up, and because we want to institute our vision of right and wrong or justice. And that's not what judges are supposed to do.
Yep.
Anyway, so this next one, and I found this one interesting. I don't know if Mike, you had a chance to go through this whole story. So there's a baker that is in in Oakland, and she is an activist. She is an anti-prison, anti-incarceration woketivist there in Oakland. And she was robbed. She came out and she saw some people basically broke into her car. Excuse me. Were stealing her car with her stuff. She went to she went to chase them down, went to try and keep them from taking her car. She got caught in the door. They pretty much dragged her for about 50 feet. Basically, she died. She winds up dying. And her family now is saying, well, it says here, family of Oakland baker who died in robbery doesn't want perpetrators sent to jail. Now, evidently, the police have said they have a good idea. They know who these guys are. They have not apprehended them yet. But her family is now saying, yeah, she wouldn't want them to go to jail. So, the police should just let them go.
Yeah, this is one of those. You got to stop and think about this for a minute. This is somebody who she like you said, she didn't want people in jail. She didn't want to see people, go to prison. Yet people that should have been in prison were responsible for her death. And now to watch the family's responses, it's just, listen, it's horrible that she's dead. Any loss of life is tragic, right? It's just. It's one of those stories that they're if they made a movie about it, you would say it's not real. That was no way that could happen. That could happen. And here you have it. And I'm curious to see how it plays out. How do you think the results of the family's demands here works out, Craig?
Well, it's Alameda County, and they've got one of those George Soros DAs. So there is a chance that they could probably wind up doing some sort of a plea deal where they plead to lesser charges and some sort of rehabilitation, yada, yada, yada. If it happened in San Francisco, right now, I would say the exact opposite would happen. The new San Francisco DA has made it very clear we're enforcing the law. The recall of Jessa Bodine was a great idea, and Mayor London Breed, who I don't pay many compliments to, selected a new district attorney who is I will say much better than Jessa Bodine, but once again, that's a pretty low bar. But this new district attorney's made it clear that, this is something that would definitely get prosecuted.
Yeah, listen, it's and we've seen the mayor there in San Francisco. She's got to come back and start to do a little bit of enforcement. Otherwise, she's going to lose absolute control of her city and get voted out. So that appointment might have been one of those reaches to, oh, look, I am trying to maintain law and order.
Well, and when you consider, once again, the people who are being victimized by these crimes, these are her constituents. I mean, it's one thing to have compassion for the criminal and want to try and see if you can rehabilitate them, but ultimately she also has to understand that, look, my voters are the ones who are being victimized by these criminals, and if I want to get reelected, I can't allow my voters to continue to be victimized.
Right, absolutely right. Yeah.
So anyway, nice turnaround on that particular one. But yeah, in this particular case, dude, I don't understand why they can't just accept. Well, first of all, their belief is that it's society's fault that criminals do what they do, and it's like, no, let's just be real. There are some people who are just bad people who will do as much as they can to take advantage of other people. If it's easier, right? If it's easier for them to take advantage of other people than to do for themselves, they will. And you have to provide a disincentive for them. And that is called the criminal justice system. If you do not have that disincentive, there are people out there who will do all sorts of harm to others for their own wants and pleasures.
There you go.
It's almost like there's this, like, liberals have this belief that people by nature are good, and if given the right information and opportunities, they'll always do the right thing. And I think conservatives have a much more realistic understanding of fallen man, and that not that every man is evil or fallen, but just that there are bad people out there. There are lazy people out there. There are stupid people, right? And at a certain point, instead of we have to account for them and how they're going to react to things.
Yeah, and added to that, the liberal or the Democrat feeling that everybody just needs a little help. They're all just misunderstood, but they're the king of not in my backyard. We want to help, but we don't want you to help in my backyard.
Exactly. We want to help. We don't want it to cost us anything. I want to take.
Don't.
I want. Yeah. It's like I want to take your money to give it to them, and I consider myself to be generous and caring.
That's it. You might be an illegal immigrant and homeless, but it doesn't mean I want you coming to Martha's Vineyard and staying next to me.
Exactly. All right, folks. Well, hey, that gets us on to our parting shots, brought to you by Hog Hosters. You find them at hoghosters.com. Go there, get your Hog Hoster today. Remember to use the discount code, The Rundown, all caps, no spaces. Get your holster today. All right, let's see here. Let's go with this first one in the honor of the Super Bowl, but also, as we continue to hear and things continue to unfold regarding the laptop from hell, Mr. Hunter Biden's laptop. Here you have some referees with they're all wearing like glasses, like the dark glasses that blind people wear, and they've all got their little walking sticks out that blind people use, and they've got seeing eye dogs, and they're kind of wandering around the football field, and it says FBI agents looking at Hunter Biden's laptop and foreign bank accounts that paid 10% for the big guy.
The big guy, you mean Roger Goodell?
Yeah, it must be Roger Goodell. That must be who Hunter Biden and his brother, I think his brother's named Frank or John or Joe Biden. Bo Biden. Frank. Bo Biden. No, right? Bo was Hunter's brother, right?
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
I think Frank was Joe Biden's brother. Anyway,
right. You're right.
The point is like, how obvious that the big guy is the president of the United States.
And 10% for the big guy. I think the wink was even written on the big guy.
I have no idea how that is even a thing, how that is not even confusing. Now this next one is in honor of the balloon or the balloon gate. What do you want to call it? UFO gate, or what do you want to call it? Mike, why don't you go ahead and describe this one for the folks?
It says the high altitude presidency, and it has pictures of. Well, there's Joe Biden there. A picture. He's a balloon. You got China with a balloon there. You got spending with a balloon. You got crime with a balloon. Fentanyl with a balloon. You got blame with a balloon. Gas balloon. Money balloon. And there's even a little border crossing balloon, it looks like there.
Yeah. And just so you know, these are all things that the White House refuses to talk about. Every single one of these are things that the White House is refusing to talk about, including Joe Biden's dementia. All right. And this last one is just the arbitrary gun meme or Second Amendment meme. There's a woman. She's on apparently on the phone, and she's saying, "Please help me. Someone broke into my house. They have a gun." And then you've got the 911 operator responding, "Ma'am, have you tried making your home a gun-free zone?" Because that'll work. You know that, right, Mike?
Exactly. I just put the sign up says gun free home. I like that the woman who clearly looks like a modern day woman on the top there is evidently calling from 1984. Look at the phone she's holding.
Exactly. Yeah, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. Who still has I mean, do you have a landline?
You know what? I have a landline just because of children in the house. So it's like a backup emergency system. It doesn't ring. It doesn't do anything else. You got to open a cabinet to find the damn phone. But it's hooked into a panic alarm and an emergency phone.
I think the only people I know for the most part that have those are situations where they have kids, or it came with a package with their internet or cell phone, and it was just they threw in a landline.
Yeah, exactly right.
I still am amazed at the number of entities, and most of them being government entities, that still get faxes.
Yeah, well, faxes, they consider it a secure way. I dealt with that for years and years. That's one of the reasons I had that line, is because working with the government, they wanted faxes, not emails. But have you tried with a kid under 18 years old? Have you asked them to mime using the phone? And you and I, if I said, Craig, mime using the phone, how do you do it? Yeah, you ask a kid now how to mime using a phone, they go like this. They're like, what do you mean? What do you mean?
What do you mean?
No idea.
Oh, all right, Mike. Well, it's about that time. But before we go, man, let's do that second shout out to our sponsors.
Yeah, and you got one more picture to bring up, Craig, as we celebrate leaving the show today.
That is right.
HitmanIndustries.net. If you want to get yourself some rifle and pistol caliber barrels at rifle and pistol caliber lengths, check out HitmanIndustries.net. California Republican Assembly, fighting the good fight behind enemy lines. Get involved with California's future today. And of course, you want some awesome field gear, some web gear, some tactical gear, get your butts over to uscombatgear.com.
All right, Mike. In honor of you purchasing your opening day or training day?
Spring training, opening day, opening home day games.
Yeah. There you go.
Yep, this is what I did yesterday during the Super Bowl. Now, listen, for me, it's settings for baseball mode all year long. But yesterday was the official click the switch, baby. Click it over. And if you need anything else extra from me, I'll be around in October if you want that. So
exactly, it's like an app that's always running in the background for Mike, right? It's always on. It's just no longer running in the background now.
Now it's up front.
Now it is up front. Well, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate you liking and sharing the program. We appreciate that you share with your friends. Do us a favor. Make sure to let them know this is the place to be. Same bat time, same bat channel tomorrow and for the rest of the week. So we'll see you tomorrow on Taco Tuesday. Y'all take care. Talk to you again real soon.